Welcome back to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. It is 9 a.m. It is August the 16th. The block finals are done. They're over with. They've been done for about an hour now for the G1 CLIMAX when I'm recording this. This isn't going live until this evening, so that's kind of without real reason, but I am recording this. I did wake up to watch the show live today at 5 a.m. And so we're going to talk about the block finals here, night 18 of the tournament, officially the end of the point-based part of this tournament. No more blocks. We'll discuss the winners of the blocks, the semifinals, all of the tournament matches that we had today, and what we're going to be getting over the next 2 days. So, that's what this episode is. So, if you're new here, I'm Pat. I'm one of the hosts of the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast alongside Angelo, Ryan, Rob, and Joey. I have been covering the G1 CLIMAX by myself for this, but you can catch them on other podcasts that we host, including Rob's SmackDown reviews, Ryan and Angelo's Impact Wrestling Power Hour, Ryan's NXT UK reviews, and Joey and me covering AEW Dynamite every week. So plenty of podcasts, plenty of coverage for basically everything in wrestling that you need. And so you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to, whether it's on a streaming service or if you're on our YouTube channel. We just passed 200 subscribers on YouTube, so we want to thank everybody who's helped us out. And if you're listening on podcast streaming services like Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Anchor, Google, wherever you are, be sure to subscribe there and leave a rating on the podcast. It helps us get seen by more people. It helps, build our reputation. So we'd appreciate leaving a rating, or if you want to write a written review, at least for Apple Podcast, you may do that as well. So that would also be appreciated. With that being said, we also have Twitter. You can find us at Deep Six Wrestling. So, if you have Twitter, we do tweet out over there pretty regularly, I will say. Not always like live tweeting, but we'll post polls, we'll ask for people's reactions, we post when our podcasts come out. So, if you just want to stay up to date, and another way to support us, follow us over on Twitter. The links to everything you need are in the episode description wherever you're listening to, whether it's on YouTube or if you are listening on a streaming service for the podcast. All of our links are there as well. So, excuse me there for the clearing my throat. So, we're going to dive on into this because we do have 8 tournament matches with how they structured this. So, there's no undercard matches. It was just 4 tournament matches, an intermission, and 4 tournament matches. So, our commentary for the night was Kevin Kelly, Chase Owens, and Chris Carlton. And we kicked things off with our 2 D-Block matches, opening the show with Will Ospreay versus Juice Robinson. No time is wasted here kicking things off as Ospreay attacks Juice from behind while Robinson is making his entrance. Juice takes control, slamming Will violently into the barricades at ringside before exposing the flooring, which has been a move of his this entire tournament. The pile driver gets looked for, but Ospreay gets out of it. We get into the ring for the first time where Ospreay flies over the top rope for a flipping plancha. But as he looks to use the barricade to nail a forearm, like he's going to use, instead of the ropes for the springboard forearm, he was going to springboard, off of the barricade. Juice kicks it and drops Ospreay face first onto the floor, and then follows up with a neck breaker on top of the barricade. This looked brutal. We get back in the ring, and Ospreay gets sent into the exposed steel after Juice exposes the steel turnbuckle in one of the corners, and he eats another neck breaker for a 2 count before eventually firing back, and he scores the springboard forearm, actually off the ropes this time, as we get a stat revealed here that both men have never lost on the final night of the G1 CLIMAX. Heading into this match, Ospreay is 2-0 on the final night of G1 action, and Juice is 4-0, so fighting to keep the streak alive, I guess. Ospreay connects with another plancha on the floor, but as he goes up top, Juice gets him into a fireman's carry and drops Ospreay onto the apron as he nails a lariat, folding Will on the apron. We get the pile driver looked for again, but this time on the apron. Will gets out with a hook kick, and he teases the Os Cutter, but Juice, scurries around the corner, and Will Ospreay, not one to be, outdone by anybody, flips over Juice and looks to hit a sunset powerbomb off of the apron over the corner here. But Juice blocks it, and so Ospreay just has to powerbomb him onto the apron instead, but still very impressive, just athleticism. The blindside shot forearm from Ospreay connects back in the ring as he goes up top again. He goes for the 450, but Juice gets the knees up and then drops Ospreay with the double knee gutbuster. Pulp friction gets looked for, but Ospreay gets out with a shotgun dropkick that sends Juice into the referee as we get our first ref bump, which allows Juice to get a low blow while Ospreay looks for the Chelsea Grin. Robinson slides out and goes under the ring to get the U.S. title belt, which he was in possession of, but did not bring out with him. He misses with the first belt shot as Ospreay levels him with the hook kick and sets up for the hidden blade, but Juice comes back and nails him in the head for a very big near fall using the belt. Juice gets the pile driver on Ospreay on the exposed floor after this, and then sends Ospreay back in and drops him head first. Ospreay sells this perfectly with the pulp friction, but somehow Will kicks out. Juice then sets up for the rock slide, but Will Ospreay gets out of it with a sunset flip pin, but it's only a 2 count, very close. Ospreay goes for the Os cutter, but Juice catches him in the rock slide, but Will gets out and drops him with the hidden blade, and Will Ospreay wins. So Will Ospreay moves to 8 points, and Juice Robinson finishes his tournament at 4 points. I thought this was an awesome opener from Ospreay and Juice here. There's some very, very good near falls. The tease of Operation Chaos, as dubbed by Kevin Kelly and Chris Carlton, the 7-way tie was fun, despite being highly unlikely. But these two went to war in the opening match, and I thought it delivered in spades. Ospreay has a few guys that can challenge him for the U.S. title, including Juice. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. We also know he's coming to AEW to compete in the Trios tournament with Aussie Open. And then Royal Quest 2 was announced just before tonight's show, so it's likely he's going to have a big match or two on those because I believe it's a 2-night event. It's October 1st and October 2nd at the Crystal Palace Indoor Arena in London for New Japan's first time in the UK in 3 years. So one would assume that the likes of Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. will feature prominently on those cards, so going to be interesting. And for what it's worth, just so I don't forget about it, later in the night before the intermission, they were talking about the Royal Quest announcement, and Chris Carlton hinted that there was another announcement coming for another big international show. They were talking about all the Strong tapings coming up. They talked about Royal Quest, and he said that he understands we're not done with big international shows being announced, so that seems to be that there's probably going to be a big New Japan US show announced. I would assume, I would have to assume it's going to be announced on the finals on Thursday. That makes the most sense to me. I don't know what it is, but if it's in America, I feel like it's fairly likely that you'll see some talent from Impact and or AEW featuring on that show, as well as the regular New Japan stars. So we'll see what it is. But so expect some news on that on one of these next podcasts. I would assume. No confirmation, but seems likely. Our other D block match: Shingo Takagi versus El Phantasmo. Sorry, not Will Ospreay. So Shingo needed to win this match to move forward, and El Phantasmo, after the Ospreay win, was eliminated from the tournament. So both guys evade each other's big moves to start here, with Phantasmo flying early on with a springboard dive to the floor, setting up for a springboard moonsault, and ELP overshoots, but Shingo gets his arm up at the last second, so, there is some sort of connection here with the skin-to-skin contact. So I appreciate that Shingo tried. ELP then does the springboard swanton and the springboard lion salt back in the ring for a 2 count. He teases a very early sudden death before stopping and then going for the diving forearm, but getting caught with a boot and a big clothesline, just getting flattened by Shingo here. A back rake from Phantasmo, and then a senton and a vertical suplex from Shingo as Takagi goes for his "Let's go, go, go" chant, but Phantasmo just kicks him in the head to stop it, and then drops him with the UFO. Phantasmo goes for a tope suicida, but Shingo connects with a closed fist and scores a Death Valley driver on the floor. Phantasmo refuses to give up and goes head-to-head with Shingo here before getting dropped, as ELP then gets lifted to the top turnbuckle. But he gets out and sends Shingo flying with the Super Rana and jumps back up and scores from across the ring as he just soars here with the Thunder Kiss 86. The Noshigami and the Pumping Bomber in succession for Shingo land, but Phantasmo kicks out. We get a crucifix pin near fall from ELP as Shingo catches him with a pop-up Death Valley driver, and Phantasmo counters out of the Last of the Dragon into a CR2 for a big near fall. Phantasmo tunes up the bend in the corner and sets up as he calls for the sudden death super kick, but Shingo catches the boot before getting leveled with two of them, and Phantasmo lands a cross-armed pile driver, which commentary dubbed the CR3, and El Phantasmo wins, pinning Shingo Takagi and eliminating him from the tournament. So El Phantasmo finishes at 6 points, tying Shingo, and Will Ospreay wins the D block. I thought this was another awesome match here. I'm a huge fan of El Phantasmo, so I loved getting to see him this tournament. I thought he was one of the MVPs for me. D block was a phenomenal block. The fact that Yujiro had multiple good matches is a testament to the quality of stuff we were getting in D block this whole G1. But I thought this was an awesome second match of the show. We got some great near falls here, and just really damn good wrestling from Shingo and Phantasmo. Both guys had really strong tournaments, and while Shingo remains one of the best in the world, El Phantasmo deserves a ton of praise, and he deserves his flowers here for his work in his first ever G1 CLIMAX tournament, and especially coming off of the Best of the Super Juniors. He went right into this, so his bouts against, his bouts against Ospreay, Yujiro, Yoshihashi, Juice, Finley, and Shingo all delivered in different ways, and I don't think he had a bad match this tournament. So I do think Phantasmo was one of the standouts of the 2022 tournament, and I hope he's back next year because he deserves it. And after the match, he would seemingly confirm that he's officially moving out of the junior division and is officially a heavyweight as he waved to El Desperado on commentary and said goodbye. So that has me very excited. But these two first matches, the two D block finals here, were both really, really good. Especially just to open the show is just a phenomenal opening to this event, and a very good way to wake up. Getting started watching wrestling at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday is quite the task. But some coffee, a Pop-Tart, and some good wrestling is a good way to start off, I guess. And that would send us into C block with Hirooki Goto versus Evil. As expected, just because it's an Evil match. Goto gets jumped during his entrance, but he maintains control briefly here, taking out Togo and sending Evil into the ring. Goto keeps control until Dick Togo gets involved again, with Goto taking him out at ringside before Evil drops him with a snap suplex on the floor. Goto tries to get back into the ring here, and Togo pulls the same cheap move he did against Kenta, grabbing the foot to try and prevent him from beating the count, but Goto kicks him off and gets in at 19, only to walk directly into Darkness Falls for a near fall here. Big mid kick and the Ushigoroshi connect for Goto as he takes back control. He sets up for the GTR, but Evil rakes the eyes to prevent it. He grabs Goto's foot and sends it into the ref as Togo gets back into the ring for Magic Killer. Goto gets out and trades positions with Evil as he uses Togo to drop Evil with their own Magic Killer and follows up with the GTW as Evil kicks out. Evil distracts the ref while holding Goto in position, and Togo runs in for like a drive-by low blow here, just runs into the ring, kicks Goto in the dick, and slides out. Everything is Evil. Evil wins, moving to 6 points, and Hirooki Goto is forced to sit at 6 points and is eliminated from the C block. At least this wasn't too long. This was probably one of the least bad Evil matches of the tournament, but it's just like, he sucks the air. He just sucks the air out of these matches and these shows. And not in like a good way where you're like, man, this heel is so good at his job. He's so entertaining. He's such a good bad guy. Such a boring bad guy, He's like, it's always the same thing. Nothing ever changes. It's always just Evil and Dick Togo doing the same spots. And it's not enjoyable. Like I can get into Gato and Jay White, because they're just really good at their jobs. Jay White's a phenomenal wrestler. He makes everything work. He makes his opponents look good. Evil very rarely makes his opponents look good. He very rarely makes himself look good anymore. So, yeah. If you're skipping a match, this is probably one to skip. I would say if you're just like cherry picking the show, it's going to be this, and you can probably skip the Jonah and Bad Luck Fale match. But yeah, this definitely was not a match that I think anybody needed, or at least an outcome. But obviously with how the tournament was booked and points and getting the math correct, Evil needed to win here, so it is what it is. That would send us into our other C block match with Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito now alone here, winner take all, as Goto was a non-factor with his loss to Evil. Sabre starts strong, just lighting up Naito in the corner and nailing him with the uppercut against the ropes. Naito slides out of the ring onto the floor before getting Zack to chase him back into the ring. As Sabre just walks into a hip toss and an atomic drop as Naito goes for a roll-up with the two men trading quick pin attempts here as Zack gets a very close near falls here with a cradle and then the Euro clutch. A flying forearm fails from Naito as the Zack driver gets looked for, but Naito gets out, teasing Destino, but he rolls up Zack Sabre Jr. instead, and Tetsuya Naito wins out of nowhere in a matter of like 2 to 3 minutes. I don't know the exact match time, but it was between 2 and 3 minutes here. So Tetsuya Naito moves to 8 points, and Zack Sabre Jr. sits at 8. Naito wins the tiebreaker, and he wins C block as Zack Sabre Jr. goes ballistic and has the biggest meltdown I've seen this man have, where he just goes crazy at ringside, throwing chairs around. Naito teases him and throws an ice pack while Zack's throwing a chair around, so we had a little baseball spot here where Naito just throws the ice pack and Zack just swings at it with the chair. I think some people are probably going to be upset that they didn't get a full match between these two, but at the same time, it was the block finals, and I wanted some, surprising things here. I don't think many people had Tetsuya Naito beating Zack Sabre Jr. in a matter of 3 minutes here, with neither guy hitting a finisher. So I was a fan of it, and it keeps Naito fresh. Obviously, he's going to have a big match, which we'll get to in a second here, but, I didn't have an issue with this. I thought it was out of nowhere. It gives Sabre a big thing for the future, I guess. We have the Royal Quest shows announced. You could do Naito versus Sabre. Especially if Naito wins the briefcase, you could do Naito versus Sabre for the briefcase. I mean, that wouldn't be too shocking to me if they go that route. But at the same time, Zack doesn't really have a claim to it, but he could just say that he wants another match with him. I don't know. Regardless, I don't see Sabre going anywhere. But I expect him and Ospreay to feature prominently on the Royal Quest 2 cards. It's just a matter of where. But again, I like this finish. I thought it was out of nowhere. It was very energetic. And we got some great post-match stuff from Zack Sabre Jr. So, And so Naito winning C block. Will Ospreay wins D block. We are getting a first-time ever matchup at the semifinals between Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito. Never before. So that is a huge match for the semifinals for the G1 CLIMAX here. Very exciting too. I love both guys. I think Ospreay's firing on all cylinders currently. Naito has delivered some great matches this G1. So I really think, keeping him fresh by, having him beat Sabre quickly so he can move on to Ospreay, regardless of if he's winning the match with Ospreay, I would want Naito to be in the best condition possible. So it makes sense to me. And it didn't make Zack look bad by losing here, so I don't have an issue with it. But I'm very excited for Ospreay versus Naito. That should be very, very fun. And at this point, we would go to intermission. So this is where we got Carlton. They just ran down the card, and Chris made the comment about another international event likely being announced sometime this week. So we'll see what it is. But I would expect something probably big in the U.S., whether it's Forbidden Door 2 or just some main New Japan show that they're running in a big arena, but they're bringing over everybody like Naito, Okada, Tanahashi. We'll see. I'm curious as to if you were going to announce a big New Japan show with a bunch of big singles matches, and all of your top guys, how well that could sell in the U.S. compared to what Strong tapings are doing. Will they have some AEW people announced for the shows to help boost it, because that would help. We'll see. But that was the first half of the G1 CLIMAX block finals. So kicking things off in the second half of the show, we kick things off with SANADA versus Tomohiro Ishii in a match in the B block with both guys eliminated heading into this one. So this was just a battle of pride and trying to finish on a strong note coming out of this G1. We had another quick finish teased right out of the gate with a flash pin attempt from SANADA, which, was just basically the story of the G1 for a lot of people this year, was lots of flash pins, especially in D blocks. But Ishii unloads with chops to SANADA, who tries to take Ishii down with forearms, but it just doesn't happen for him. The two get locked up in the corner, and Ishii fires off with the chop and forearm combination. Commentary continues to talk about the fact that prior to this match, this G1 has been Ishii's worst performance in a G1 since his first tournament in 2013 from a points perspective, noting that this could be his final G1 outing as he is getting older, and also, again, just looking at the points, the point total for him, coming off of last year's tournament, which was the one where I believe they said was his best record to date, to going to his worst. So, just worth keeping in mind. But the two men go to the floor, and the magic screw from SANADA lands on the outside with Ishii on the apron. We get back and forth from these two back in the ring. SANADA takes control again using a magic screw back in the ring, just like a regular one. And he follows up with the TKO for a 2 count. A big headbutt from Ishii connects, and a spin kick from SANADA as he attempts to get the skull end, but Ishii fights out and just levels SANADA in the center of the ring. And he comes off the ropes with a running lariat for another 2 count here as he looks for the brainbuster. He tries twice, but SANADA gets out both times and tilt-a-whirls around the head, looking for skull end again, but Ishii looks for the brainbuster, but he just drops SANADA with a DDT instead. We had a crucifix pin from SANADA that gets a big near fall as the G1 flash pin tour continues, before SANADA flips over the back of Ishii, like sliced bread style, and looks for the skull end again, but he doesn't get it, and so he does the O'Connor roll for another big near fall as Ishii kicks out of this, which got a pretty big reaction from the crowd. Ishii runs into the TKO position but gets out and drops SANADA with a big suplex, but SANADA no-sells it and comes back to life with a tiger suplex of his own, and Ishii gets out of it and takes SANADA down with another lariat for a close count, and then the vertical drop brainbuster connects, and Tomohiro Ishii wins, moving to 4 points, and SANADA sits at 6, both eliminated before the match. Again, it was a bit weird for this one to go on late in the show, especially, just coming off of the intermission to have a match with no stakes. But with that being said, I thought, I think commentary tried their best to add something to this by, saying that Ishii was basically fighting for a spot in next year's tournament. So I thought that, did add to the match, and I thought these two delivered big time with a very fun match. I thought SANADA showed some great fighting spirit here. I thought, you don't really see that too often from SANADA, but the moment when he no-sold that suplex and fired off a tiger suplex, I thought that was awesome. I was a big fan. And so, as somebody who's not super high on SANADA always, I thought he had a really good G1. I enjoyed a lot of his wrestling. So shout out to SANADA. Even if the points didn't reflect it for these two, I thought they both wrestled good tournaments. Yeah, and if this were to be the final G1 of Tomohiro Ishii, at least he went out with a win. I don't think it will be his final one, but, if the case were that this was it, at least he goes out, standing tall. And that would send us into the actual big match for B Block, which was Jay White versus Tama Tonga. Jay White headed into this match undefeated in the tournament thus far, as Tama Tonga would be looking to be Jay's only defeat. And if he did beat him, he would take B Block. He would win. So, yeah. So White slides out immediately, but as we get back into the ring here, Tama just rips off his top without hesitation, not playing to the crowd like he normally does, as the two men trade strikes with one another in the corner. Just really selling the animosity here between the two as they just both vie for control, just beating each other down. White takes control at ringside. He sends Tama back into the ring and scores a suplex into the corner pad for a 2 count, and follows up with a big side suplex to follow up with another failed pin. It's noted that it has been 22 years since the top champion in New Japan has won a G1 Climax. When it happened in 2000, it was also a 4-man block, so adding some background to this. Jay fires off hard, fast chops in the corner to Tama, just beating him down onto the ground, but Tama Tonga fires back with a big-time lariat, taking Jay down for the first time. We get the lariat, forearm, and body slam combo, all for Tama, as he flies out of the corner with a big body splash, and then nails a back suplex to take down Jay once again. He looks for the Tongan twist, but Jay fights out, goes to the apron, and he snaps the neck of Tama Tonga over the top rope. The Death Valley driver is looked for from Tama Tonga, but Jay drops him with the DDT. Jay then follows up by looking for the Blade Buster, but Tama Tonga counters with the Tongan twist. That is a tongue twister if I've ever seen one. Tama Tonga counters with the Tongan twist. But Jay evades the actual Tongan twist and connects with the Blade Buster before landing the complete shot and the deadlift German as he rocks the baby. And then he locks the wrist of Tama Tonga and calls for the Blade Runner, but instead just drills Tama with knees to the ribs. But out of nowhere, Tama gets the poison DDT to land. It has an actual name. I think it starts with like a V. Not 100% sure what it is. The Death Valley driver then lands from Tama as he goes high and connects with the Supreme Flow for a 2 count. Tama calls for the gun stun finally, and Gato gets up on the apron, but Jado pulls him down. The gun stun fails as Jay just spikes Tama down with the Uranagi. He locks the sleeper in, with Jay looking for the sleeper suplex, but Tama just backs into the corner to prevent it, and instead eats a bunch of shoulder blocks from Jay White to the lower back before he gets dropped with the sleeper suplex, not being able to hold it off any longer. Tama gets out of the Blade Runner, counters into the Tongan twist, and successfully lands it as he goes for the gun stun again, but the Blade Runner gets looked for. Both men get out of the finishers. And Tama Tonga busts out Prince Devitt's Bloody Sunday for a huge near fall. He goes for the underhook pile driver, which he used to beat Okada last year. But Jay evades. The Blade Runner gets looked for again. Tama gets out and uses an inside cradle to get a close count here. We get the gun stun teased again, but Jay throws Tama down, just like face first. Jay goes for the Blade Runner once again, but Tama gets out and goes for the gun stun and connects. Tama Tonga wins, handing Jay White his only defeat of the tournament as he ties Jay White at 10 points, and Tama Tonga wins the B block. So this is our major upset coming out of this show, aside from El Phantasmo beating Shingo. I thought this was another very strong match with storyline purposes of Tama Tonga finally getting his sweet revenge over Jay White after the massive betrayal where he was kicked out of Bullet Club, obviously despite being one of the first members. Tama Tonga, I feel like he just really continues to be an incredibly good babyface wrestler in New Japan, which is awesome to see. And this win, it's his first time winning a G1 Climax block, and it's likely going to mean that he's going to get a shot at the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship in a singles match, probably sometime in the fall. So even if there's not really a chance he's going to win the belt, still a massive match for Tama, and I thought him and Jay had really good chemistry here, so I'm excited for their match whenever they have it. And yeah, I thought this match really just helped elevate Tama Tonga, similar to how the win for JONAH over Okada elevated JONAH. The fact that they gave the big win here to Tama Tonga to beat Jay White, I think was a very good call, especially since we had Tama Tonga lose to Carl Anderson in his first defense of the Never Belt, and Carl Anderson has not shown back up yet, and I think he just started coming out with the belt on the Impact tapings, so so this was really solid, and that means Tama Tonga would head to the B block finals, where he will be met by somebody from A block. So we would get JONAH versus Bad Luck Fale up next. Technically, JONAH was not eliminated yet at this point. He would need to beat Bad Luck Fale, and then there would need to be like a no contest in the main event for him to successfully get into A block contention. That would not happen. So one final battle of the monsters here in the semi-main event, with the two firing off hard shots to start before JONAH just nails a standing splash to send Fale to ringside. He comes off the apron with the diving shoulder tackle, and Fale comes back with a running shoulder tackle as JONAH goes down. The two men fight out towards the ramp, trading blows around the ringside area, with Fale landing some big blows and then getting whipped by JONAH into the ring post. JONAH looks to splash Fale against the ring post, but Fale evades as JONAH just flies into the metal post by himself. We get a countout teased here, but both men get in at 19. A super kick from JONAH and a splash in the corner land, but JONAH gets cut off with a big spear from Bad Luck Fale. The Black Forest Bomb and a big slam lands for JONAH as he climbs to the top. The Torpedo gets the big reaction from the crowd, and JONAH wins, finishing the tournament at 8 points as Bad Luck Fale finishes at 4. I think this was Bad Luck Fale's best match of the tournament. Probably one of the best matches of his in recent memory. JONAH certainly impressed me in the second half of his G1, and with the major win over Okada, it really feels like he's going to be a big-time player in New Japan moving forward, at least for some time to come. And with that being said, I kind of expect JONAH to hold some type of belt within the company in the next year. I could see him winning the IWGP United States Championship. I could also see him getting the Never Openweight belt. He also does wrestle on Strong, so I think the Strong Openweight title could be in his future. Him dethroning Fred Rosser is a possibility. But regardless, if Jonah can perform how he did in the latter half of the G1, he could have a very bright career ahead of him in New Japan, especially as like the leader of a whole faction, because he does have TMDK backing him. So it's possible that Jonah could be a major player in New Japan for the next couple of years. And the main event, the true deciding match of the A block, Lance Archer versus Kazuchika Okada. Lance Archer representing AEW and Okada being Okada. Whoever won this was winning the block and would be meeting Tama Tonga in the semifinals. So Archer comes out very different demeanor than normal. He comes out and has his hood up and just stands in the ring with his back to the ramp. And just looks very stoic, very serious, not giving Okada any attention during his entrance. And right out of the gate, he chokeslams Okada and hits a black hole slam, just starting off a very different match here, just kind of a shocking one as the crowd comes to life. Okada fights to his feet with forearms to the face of Archer, but Lance just laughs them off before nailing the pounce and sending Okada flying to the floor. Archer just sends Okada's head bouncing off the metal barricade, slamming it into it repeatedly, and getting a very loud gasp from the Budokan as he drills Okada with all of his weight, cannonballing himself into Okada's head against the metal barricade here. And we get an instant replay of this. This looks brutal. Archer grabs one of the young lions and slams him down on Okada as he just continues this major offensive run to start the match. Archer hits the ropes with the tightrope walk before he lands the moonsault for a 2 count. The blackout gets teased, but Okada gets down and drops Archer with a Rainmaker out of nowhere as both men go down for the first time. The dropkick from Okada connects, and Okada gets his wish to slam another giant as he body slams Lance Archer. And he takes his time and climbs to the top to get the elbow drop, which does connect. It's the Rainmaker pose, and another Rainmaker gets teased as we get a flash pin from Okada for a 2 count. Lance Archer busts out a big dropkick that gets a wild reaction from the crowd, and a Rainmaker for a near fall for a huge reaction. Okada then gets lifted to the top as Archer connects with the blackout, but Okada gets out using a crucifix pin attempt here that Archer kicks out for a near fall. So just really good spots here. Okada goes up top again with a second blackout getting looked for, but he slides off the back of Lance Archer and then chop blocks the back of the knee as he locks in the money clip. Lance teases fading, but he comes back to life and fights out of it, thank God. A huge clothesline from Lance folds Okada in the center of the ring as the big man lines up in the corner, getting another drop kick. But the landslide connects from Okada, and following the landslide, a Rainmaker seals the deal. Kazuchika Okada wins the match and finishes at 10 points as Lance Archer finishes at 8, with Okada winning the A block. While the pacing and layout of this card felt a bit weird, and I think a lot of people assumed Naito and Sabre would have been the main event match you would go to, this worked. I thought this was a really strong main event between these two. I think this was Archer's best match of the tournament, so I think Okada gave Archer and Jonah their 2 best matches of the G1 this year. But I really enjoyed this. I thought Archer played the role really well. I thought Okada played his role really well. I thought it joined, a very strong run of matches tonight with Shingo and Phantasmo, Juice and Ospreay, SANADA and Ishii, White and Tama. I thought this was a very strong show. This was a very easy couple hours to watch. I did not regret waking up at 5 a.m. for this. I'm still tired now. And it's 9:46 in the morning, but it was worth it. This was a ton of fun. I enjoyed the show thoroughly. Yeah. Again, the only things you could really like Jonah and Bad Luck Fale, you don't need to watch. SANADA and Ishii, you wouldn't be missing out because it didn't have an effect on the tournament, but I still recommend the match because it was really good. And Goto and Evil you can skip, but the 2 D block matches with Shingo and Phantasmo and Ospreay and Juice are both must watch for me. Naito and Sabre was great, plus the post match stuff with Zack was awesome. SANADA and Ishii was really good. Tama and Jay White was great. Jonah versus Bad Luck Fale was, again, a good match still for the most part. And Lance Archer versus Okada was a great main event. So, again, all in all, I thought this was a super strong show from New Japan. And one that I would recommend. And so that sends us into the semifinals. we don't have the card announced, so I can't give everybody, like, if you're listening to this, I can't give you the rundown of what the semifinals card is. That's the only issue with me recording at 9:47, but I want to be able to get this review out earlier. So, but we do have our semifinals matches. So we have, obviously, Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito for the first time ever, and Okada versus Tama Tonga in a rematch from last year's G1, where Tama Tonga handed Okada his only defeat in the tournament. So, obviously, some history there. My assumption is that we're just getting Naito and Okada, but I guess they could throw a curveball at us. You never know. But yeah, so we're coming in close here. We're about to be at the end. I really don't know what they're going to do for the semifinals card, if it's just going to be a bunch of, nonsensical tag matches, because you still have the final show, which both of these events are going to have other matches on them. So, yeah, I really don't know what they're going to do with the rest of the card. I don't know, who's around, if they're going to have any, surprises or what. But I'd assume, you're going to get a big angle and probably some announcement for a U.S. show during the final night on Thursday. So, yeah, but that was the block final, so I want to thank you for joining me. If you made it to the end of the episode, be sure to comment what was your favorite match from the block finals of the G1 CLIMAX. Who do you think is winning the entire thing? Do you think it's going to be Naito? Do you think it's going to be Ospreay? Is it going to be Tama Tonga? Is it going to be Okada? Are you expecting any specific surprises? Will we see Shibata show up at the finals? Any AEW people? Any setup for future stuff? Whatever you want to comment, feel free to do so. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you're on YouTube. Leave a rating if you're on Spotify or Apple. And until next time, I have been Pat. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening and being a supporter of the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. We'll talk to you in the next episode. Until then, adios.